Welcome to this explainer. We're jumping right into some incredibly ancient Vedantic texts today to tackle and honestly completely shatter one of humanity's absolute biggest fears. I'm talking about the concept of mortality. If you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by the ticking clock or just the sheer fragility of human life, well, you're in the right place. We're going to deconstruct the very idea of death itself, using some seriously timeless philosophy to bring you some real, empowering spiritual clarity. Okay, so here is the major, totally counterintuitive premise straight from the source text. The idea that death, as we understand it anyway, simply doesn't exist. It's just not a tangible reality. The texts are actually telling us that our whole fundamental understanding of what it means to die is basically a massive case of mistaken identity. See, we think we are our bodies, right? And because of that, we believe we can end. But the texts invite us to just completely throw that core assumption right out the window from the get-go.
Section 1. Death is an illusion.
Now, to really grasp why death isn't a thing, we absolutely have to look at the core difference between the body and the soul. And the texts lay this out brilliantly. On one hand, you've got the physical body. It's super vulnerable to the elements, right? It can be cut by swords, burned by fire, drowned in water, dried out by the wind. But then look at the properties of the soul, or the Atma. The text explicitly defines it as uncuttable, unburnable, totally impossible to drown, and impossible to dry. So while your physical body is entirely at the mercy of this material world, your true soul, it's literally indestructible. It just cannot be altered or harmed by physical forces. No way. And the text actually gives us this incredibly vivid visualization to help wrap our heads around it. Imagine the soul as a giant, infinite sphere. The boundary of the sphere is completely limitless. But its center? Well, its center just happens to temporarily reside right inside your physical body. So what we mistakenly call death is really just that center shifting from one physical servant, your current body, to the next one. The soul itself doesn't end, it just relocates. It's eternal, it's pure, and it's entirely free. But because it's temporarily tethered to matter, it gets kinda confused and thinks, oh, I am this physical matter. Section 2. The cruel fear of time. So even if we totally accept intellectually that the soul is immortal, we still have to wake up and face the reality of our earthly existence, right? The daily struggles. And the text actually shifts to a really deeply empathetic tone here. It asks, how does a soul, which right now is being tossed around like a tiny, helpless boat in a violent ocean storm, how does it escape the relentless wheel of time, the Kala chakra? Because, yeah, while the soul might be infinite, our human experience feels extremely finite, and time just feels like this monstrous, unstoppable force constantly pushing against us. And this cruel machine of time, it spares absolutely no one. The texts paint a pretty stark picture here. Helpless orphans, grieving widows, even the most powerful rulers maddened by their own strength, they are all crushed equally by the wheels of time. Literally, no one escapes the two-edged sword of cause and effect. So it really begs the question, is there anyone who isn't intimidated by the sheer power of time? Is there anyone who can save us from this storm? Section 3. The fearless message of Vedanta. Okay, so right when the existential dread starts feeling completely insurmountable, the texts deliver this massive, triumphant shift in tone. They don't just offer some meek little comfort. No, they provide this booming, incredibly empowering answer to help conquer this fear once and for all. They literally command us, friends, fear not. They're telling us to wake up and recognize our true nature. We are called the essence of truth, consciousness, and bliss, Satchidananda. The text is urgently reminding you of the ancient, eternal form you were born from. Once you finally recognize that you are a child of pure bliss, your ship has essentially already crossed that turbulent ocean. And this brings us to a really crucial point, which is a radical reframing of our own self-worth. The text declares that calling a human being a sinner is actually the greatest sin of all. Why? Because it completely traps you in the illusion of your physical limitations. The text reminds us that you are inherently pure, you are complete, and you are eternally free. Your physical body is merely your servant. So, believing you're some broken sinner bound to this material world, that is the real illusion you need to break. Section 4. Detachment like a lotus leaf. So how do we actually live this out? How do we escape time's terrifying claws while, still having to exist in the physical world? Well, the texts give us a very clear framework. It starts with recognizing the divine, the force that governs the universe and commands the 5 elements. But notice that third point, because this is absolutely vital. We aren't necessarily praying for the burden of life to just magically vanish. Instead, we're praying to the all-pervading Creator, our ultimate mother, father, brother, and friend, and we're asking for the sheer strength to bear the immense weight of human life. And we do this by cultivating a supreme, unwavering love for the divine across all our lifetimes. Now, to avoid the crushing disappointment and sorrow of the material world, we have to practice what the texts call selfless action, or nishkam karma. It means you act, you do things, but you do them without thirsting for the results. You remain completely separate from the fleeting joy or the deep sorrow that those actions might bring. So whether you just got a massive promotion at work or somebody just cut you off in traffic, the text uses this absolutely beautiful metaphor. You have to live in the world completely untouched by it, exactly like a drop of water rolling effortlessly off a lotus leaf.
Section 5. Yudhishthira's exclusive love.
To really anchor this high philosophy in something concrete, the text shares a deeply touching anecdote about King Yudhishthira. This was a great king who had literally lost his entire kingdom, all his wealth, and was wandering around the Himalayas. When his wife Draupadi asks him why a devoted, righteous man like him has to suffer so much, his serene response reveals the absolute pinnacle of pure love. He just points to the mountains and says, "Do I love the beautiful Himalayas to get something in return? No. I love sublime beauty by nature. I want nothing in return for my love." He views his devotion to the divine in that exact same way. It's a love that is completely devoid of transactions or expectations.
Section 6. Eternal victory over death.
And this profound realization from the king brings us directly to the ultimate resolution of our human fear of mortality. By cultivating this exact kind of desireless, unconditional love, loving simply because it is your very nature to love the ultimate beauty of the universe, the terrifying monster of death is completely unmasked. It's revealed to be nothing more than a harmless illusion. True love for the divine is literally the only real escape mechanism from the fear of death. The text wraps up with this incredibly comforting promise. Once this supreme, unconditional spiritual love really takes hold within you, physical death practically ceases to exist in your mind. You simply no longer identify with the fragile body that dies. And even as the physical transition happens, it completely loses its painful sting. The suffering is just gone because the illusion is broken.
I want to leave you with a final, really provocative thought based on everything we've just uncovered today. If you truly, deeply internalize the reality that your inner self is pure, perfectly indestructible, and completely untouched by time, how would your daily anxieties vanish? How differently would you live your life, starting right now, today? Think about that. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning those illusions.